Third verse, same as the first. A whole lot of the same, but a whole lot worse. Hello and welcome to RotD Review of the Day, and today I continue down the rabbit hole that is the Phantasm franchise with Phantasm 3, Lord of the Dead, made in 1994. This, I thought, was pretty much, as you might infer from the intro there, just a rehash of everything that we've seen already. This was a road movie just like number 2 was. This was slowly revealing a mythos to it that doesn't seem to have a whole lot of rhyme or reason or direction, and ultimately wound up being a bit of a snoozer, in my opinion. This was just, I'm not going to say that it was a bad movie. I'm just going to say that in light of the other two's existence, a bit pointless. It was just continuing on with the same theme, the same characters, the same and the same and the same. There were a few new elements to it, but not enough that it broke that feel. So to get into more details, let's get into the categories. As always, 4 different categories, each one worth up to 25 points for a total possible score of 100 points. The plot, I gave a 9 out of 25. It is going down. I couldn't really tell. This seems like it was shifting away from horror and more to an action movie surrounded by the reanimated dead. And yeah, number 2 had shades of that, especially when they were going through the hardware store and so on and so forth. But this really just kind of took it and continued on with it. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that. I have no real issue with that, except in doing so, they have attempted to put front and center as the hapless action hero the character of Reggie. And I'm sorry, I'm really just not buying it. If you have a character that's thrust into the middle of a horrific situation, that's hapless and helpless and always strikes out with the ladies, but and always says the wrong thing, but ultimately comes through in the end with his shotgun of awesomeness. I'm sorry, but we already have an Ash Williams. The spot is taken, and it's done much, much better by Bruce Campbell. I'm not on board with the Reggie character being an action hero. Being a side character, support system, so on and so forth, absolutely. I really liked Reggie in that, but trying to turn him into the next action hero, I'm not on board with. Like I said, there were a few new characters, there were a few new elements, there was a layer of humor that was added onto it, but ultimately, there just wasn't a lot there for me to really latch onto. The second Phantasm movie had the benefit of being the same as the first one while also finding a new voice in when it turned from continuing the mythos and continuing the characters, but ultimately turning on its own head and becoming a road movie. It had its own unique flair and its own unique style, and this one is just the same, and I can't really give the plot a whole lot more points than 9 out of 25. The intent gave a 5 out of 25. Was it intending to be a horror movie? Aside from the fact that it does have the undead in it, it really wasn't. There was nothing scary about it. There was nothing horrific about it. Yeah, some supernatural, some aliens. We're still not entirely sure exactly what yet, but I wouldn't say anything necessarily horror related. Is it intending to be an action movie? Well, if it is, it's a bad one. I'm sorry. It's just really cheesy and schlocky, and it feels like a bad 80s action movie when this is supposed to be a halfway decent mid-90s horror movie, and I'm not on board with that. Is it intending to be humorous? Well, the humor that was thrown in was just all groans, no laughs. Didn't really matter on that front. So is it intending to continue the tall man mythos, especially in regards to the Mike character? Well, in that case, it really doesn't a whole lot. It has a lot of questions that it asks, and it has a lot of glimmers of answers, but no real coherency to it. It makes me wonder if there is any coherency to be had, if the entire mythos was mapped out and we are being slowly introduced to it, or if somebody is just throwing darts randomly at a dartboard. I don't know, but ultimately the intention of this movie, I just feel like it didn't live up to whatever it might have been trying for. So 5 out of 25. The acting, 10 out of 25. The, the performances in here were strong, but they found their note and they're sticking to it. It's like a petulant child that likes the sound of C sharp and just keeps hitting it louder and louder. And there's just no range. There's nothing adding on to anything about the characters. Yes, I love Angus Scrimm as the tall man. But I mean, having a villain one note is fine if you have heroes that are growing around them and bringing the vibrancy to the screen, and there just isn't. There's just no other way to put it. I mean, I thought everybody did an adept job. They hit that note well, but that's all they really hit. Reggie Bannister is back as Reggie and seems to be slipping into his action hero shoes with a sense of bravado, and okay, I'm still not buying it. A. Michael Baldwin is back as Mike. Like I said, I thought that, I wasn't really aligned with one actor or the other, but he's back as Mike. Okay, no problem there. Bill Thornbury is back as Jody in kind of a interesting sphere embodiment, taking on a hero's role a bit, or hero support system role, as opposed to a device of death. All of which I thought were okay at best. 10 out of 25. The technical, I actually give a 16 out of 25. There's really nothing here to complain about on a technical level with the editing, with the camera work, with the special effects, physical effects, body effects, makeup. All fairly adept, nothing to really write home about, but I would say, yeah, on this side of positive average. Pretty good overall. But that gives us a total score of 40 out of 100 points. I'm really at this point thinking that the only way that I will really hop on the Phantasm bandwagon at this point is if they tone down the presence of the Reggie character, if they stop trying to make him an action hero and putting him front and center. The main star of this is, up until this point, Mike, and I'm more interested in that. And with the illusions of what the tall man wants in him, what the transformation he's going through, I'm way, way more intrigued by that than I am Reggie. At this point, it feels like when they're separated out from each other and Mike is going down his journey of the tall man mythos and Reggie is simply reacting to it, trying to find Mike and getting shoehorned into action sequences with the undead, the Reggie portion of that feels like a hindrance to the storyline. It feels like it's bogging things down and coming up with scenes just to fill time, whereas this section here with Mike and the tall man is where the real meat is, and that's what I wanted to focus on. If Phantasm 4 does that, if it focuses on the Mike and tall man mythos, puts Reggie off to the side and maybe gives him just a few minutes of screen time, then I would be on board with it. We will see in Phantasm 4. I will be reviewing that tomorrow, and I look forward to seeing you there. Thank you for joining me today, and remember, next time you want to watch a horror movie, first make sure that it's good and rotted.